From MTN, the Montana Television Network, this is Face the State.
An hour-long morning commute to and from school, Wolf Creek to Augusta each day. Getting on the bus in the dark is just the beginning for third grader Corbin.
10-hour day, counting the bus rides.
Mr. Love teaches high school shop and drives the bus, making sure these kids who live more than 40 miles away get to their class on time.
Working on your Halloween costume, Corbin?
As the sun begins to rise somewhere along Highway 200 and 434, more kids get on board. Traveling down the road on the way to school, mountains, rivers, and hours all pass by the windows. The distance for these kids to get their education may be longer than others, but they don't know any different.
Hey guys.
Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Face the State. I'm Mackenzie Frost. Education in rural Montana has charm, but also challenges. We traveled around western Montana this fall to sit in classrooms, visit with students, and listen to what teachers and administrators are saying about their biggest hurdles, all to ensure these students get the best education possible. Over the next half hour, we'll go to 3 Class C schools: Augusta, tucked alongside the Rocky Mountain front, Hot Springs, in a remote part of the Flathead Indian Reservation, and Dutton, Brady, about 40 miles north of Great Falls on Interstate 15. These schools, like many others their size, face shrinking enrollments and budgets, higher graduation requirements, and they all have an intense passion for creating lasting bonds.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
High school English class in the Dutton Brady School.
If you picked the last line as part of your phrase, that's fine.
Where the class sees full attendance when there are only 10 students. And on a morning that brought early season snow.
I was thinking about you as I was driving. I should have just taken you with me. What time did you leave this morning?
The community feeling is amplified.
2 words that stand out to you. Because the class sizes are smaller, we have easy conversations, student-teacher conversations. So
Lisette Langdorf found herself teaching in Dutton after 3 years in
I
Shoto.
want you to draw a line and connect them.
Growing up in Helena Public Schools, she knew a AA district was not where she wanted to plant her teaching roots.
I always knew I was going to be a teacher, and I always knew that I didn't want to teach in Helena. I wanted something different.
And Dutton Brady is different. There are fewer students in the entire district
Against the feathers,
than her high school.
And I wanted something smaller.
Smaller classes, smaller schools, smaller community.
called The Fox and the Girl.
Yes.
And I
Oh,
printed it out.
good deal.
All present in rural Montana. 250 miles away along the western edge of the Flathead Indian Reservation sits Hot Springs, Montana. While multiple mountain ranges separate Dutton and Hot Springs, the tight-knit community feel is the same.
You know every single teacher, and you know all the administration.
You know every single
so they'll
teacher,
stop
and you know all the administration.
Like ask you how you're doing.
Like Dutton Brady, Hot Springs' entire district sits on one property. A covered walkway connects the high school to the elementary. Third grade teacher Alicia Pablo has taught in Hot Springs for 14 years. This was her first teaching job, and it's been her only teaching job.
Making relationships with kids is huge. And if you can make a relationship with a kid, then you can get them to learn.
Wanting to make those connections runs through the entire building, from the lunch crew
Congratulations on your spelling.
all the way up to Superintendent Mike Perry.
I can stand out in the morning and greet the kids off the bus, and I know every single one of them by name.
And he knows each name for the 74 students in the high school. With so few students, small class sizes come naturally, and for senior Stacy Gray, that makes learning easier.
If you had any questions, you could go in and talk to her anytime, and she'd explain it to you. If I was in a bigger school, I'd have to either find a tutor or try to figure it out myself through the book, and I wouldn't have that teacher to explain it to me.
Comfort in the classroom, a thread that connects schools like Hot Springs and Dutton Brady.
The teachers here, they have so much more time with you individually. I feel like I can
ask any question I want anytime it comes in my mind.
Senior Aaron Infinger knows what it's like to go to bigger schools. He started in Great Falls, went to Dutton Brady, then Butte, back to Great Falls, and now he's chosen to return to Dutton Brady.
I benefited from coming back here because there's so many people that care about where you're going.
Knowing the teachers and staff care makes all the difference to him.
Which we still have, right?
You just have that feeling, like it's not always said, but inside, like, you know, oh, if I start slipping up, someone's gonna say something to me. So I gotta, you know, keep trucking along.
And that's what Langdorf wants her students to know.
This is your education. Let me help you. I don't want you to feel that you are falling through the cracks.
Lisette Langdorf, like many other educators in small schools across Montana, work hard to set students up for success. That includes setting the graduation bar higher than what the state requires. Now, this graph shows the Montana Board of Education calls for 20 credits to get that diploma. Hot Springs requires 24 and 25 for the honors curriculum. In Dutton Brady, that number is 24. In Augusta, it's 22. All three schools require 3 years of math, 1 year above the state set minimum. In fact, the Montana Rural High School Association did a study with 85% school participation and found that only 19% of Class C schools have a 2-year math requirement, while 57% of Class A schools do. So this begs the question, why do the smallest schools in Montana have some of the highest requirements?
Most people in rural Montana know that the students aren't going to come back here. There's not employment here. Whether they go to a 4-year university, a trade school, or not, they want them to be able to have that choice.
The superintendent of Dutton Brady feels the same.
The students need that to go on and be successful.
Brooks says the graduation requirements were set before he took over 8 years ago, but believes their small size makes it easier to implement new guidelines.
Don't throw it.
We have that flexibility to change and adapt, perhaps more so than a AA school or an A school.
But asking a lot of the students also means asking a lot of their already stretched staff.
Why didn't they come?
Most of the teachers are pulling double duty.
And when you're in a small school, we're talking most of our teachers then have one planning period and what we call 7 preps. So 7 different classes that they're prepping for during the day. It's a tough load.
And class sizes don't change that.
But it doesn't matter if you're teaching biology to 30 kids or teaching biology to 10 kids. You're still teaching the class and you still need to prep for it.
But Augusta Superintendent Matt Ganger believes the class sizes do make it easier for these students to find success at all ends of the learning curve.
We're able to accelerate the student in class, no matter what class it is, accelerate, and at the same time, because of the low numbers, we can remediate the child that needs a remediation.
Hot Springs 3rd grade teacher Alicia Pablo realizes her district's requirements are above the state minimum, but believes that is a good thing.
And I think if you have higher expectations, they'll meet them, they'll exceed them. So why not set it high?
In Dutton Brady, during the day, Miss Langdorf teaches her students English.
What is the title of this?
But her job doesn't stop there.
You're not only the English teacher, but you're the yearbook advisor, you're the newspaper advisor, you're the student council advisor, you're going to coach speech and drama, and you're going to do the school play. All those things I'm doing this year.
And neither does Superintendent Mike Perry's.
We don't have many sub-drivers, so two of the main sub-bus drivers are the custodian and then myself.
Superintendent, bus driver, teacher, coach, and advisor.
Go get it!
It's a lot. That can't be found in many places, but it is found in Montana's rural schools.
It's just hard work, and you do it because you do it for the kids.
These rigorous expectations are simplified thanks to the dedication of everyone in the classrooms.
20 by tomorrow, please.
If students are struggling, we know that. We encourage them to seek extra help, do extra work, whatever it takes for them to get their grades up and learn and graduate.
And for those 29 high school students in Dutton Brady,
I always try to come in earlier in the morning and stay after school so that I can be available. Whether they want it or not, it doesn't matter. I'm here for them.
it works. The graduation rate?
I can tell you that right off the top of my head, 100%. Students are expected to graduate.
These small schools have limited resources to provide the best education they can for their students. One tool that helps them is the Montana Digital Academy, allowing students to enroll in classes online. Launched in 2010, this distance learning option gives students the ability to take classes not normally offered. The legislature set a budget for the Digital Academy, which saw a small 0.5% decrease in funding from fiscal year 2017 to fiscal year 2018. Unlike the Digital Academy, funding for public schools is largely based on enrollment, and rural schools are facing dwindling numbers of students sitting in each classroom. So keeping the standards high and the doors open is difficult. Driving through Hot Springs, a community with around 550 people.
There's no way to make a living here.
The challenges can be seen anywhere you look.
On this, I guess I would call it a compound. But you can see the couple trailers and an RV and the school bus over there.
And that's where the kids were?
That's where they lived. So, and so we'd pick them up and you knew the conditions that they were living in.
The economic disparities in a small community like Hot Springs can strain the students, making the school day even more important.
Despite knowing what's going on at home, there's not much that we can do about it. So all we can do is make sure that when they're here at school, they know that they're loved and they're cared about.
In the classroom, teachers are the leaders.
26 is right here.
Our staff are the number one thing that we have. There's no bigger impact on students than our teachers.
It'll change.
Finding those teachers who will fit into these rural, sometimes isolated communities can be quite problematic.
This last year we needed both a science teacher and an English teacher and an elementary teacher. And we were able to fill them all with, I think, fantastic teachers. So we've been lucky, cross our fingers.
Perry recognizes that he was fortunate to fill those positions before the school year began.
I honestly don't know. I hope that I'm never in that position.
Because Dutton Brady was not quite as lucky.
Okay, when I talked about it.
Our business teacher from last year retired. We had 3 applicants for that position, and they all turned us down. So
each school in Montana gets what's called basic entitlement, a set amount given to every district.
The base funding formula from the state, I think, needs some changes.
Then there is the average number belonging, or A and B funding, which equates to how much the district gets for each student. For K through 6th grade, it's just over $5,500 per kid. 7th through 12th grade, it's a little more than $7,000. Matt Ganger is the football coach, English teacher, and the superintendent of Augusta schools. And he says when it comes to the cost of running a school, location doesn't necessarily matter.
A teacher costs so much, whether the teacher's in Augusta, Fairfield, Shoto, Dutton, Brady, it all costs us relatively the same to hire that one teacher. And so our funding formula, I don't believe, addresses that.
Unlike other rural schools, the Augusta district has seen enrollment growth. The last 3 years, the K-12 district has seen enrollment steadily increase from 84 students in 2014 to 99 in 2016. Hot Springs has seen more dramatic, unpredictable changes over the years.
2 years ago to last year, we had an increase in 50 students.
While 50 students in a K-12 district might not seem like a significant increase, it hits these schools substantially.
We're talking about staff to cover 50 extra students. We're talking about books and materials. And your budget is based on the prior number, so we didn't have the money.
Flash forward to the next year.
Now you show up to school and you're minus 40 students.
And now?
This year we have 74. 6 years from now we're slated to have 43.
These large swings in enrollment numbers really challenge Perry and the other superintendents.
And so the last couple of years have been a little bit tough when it comes to budgeting here.
But bottom line?
There are certain costs that cost everybody the same.
Enrollment numbers are always changing, and so are the other sources of funding.
What happened in the legislative session this past spring, certain grants that the state had funded in the past were passed on to the local taxpayer.
Superintendent Brooks is referring to Senate Bill 261, which outlines cuts to these block grants administered by the Office of Public Instruction if certain benchmarks weren't met with tax revenue. With grants in question, Hot Springs Superintendent Perry brings it back to the number of students in the district.
Money is based on enrollment. So even though we have to offer the same classes, we're getting less money for the same thing.
And if there is another downswing in student enrollment,
if it's either I can pay for it or I can't, programs go away.
but cutting programs to save money could end up costing these school districts.
So not only are you losing numbers by just attrition in the community, now you've got families taking their kids somewhere else because you can no longer offer their kids as rich an education as they want for them.
These small schools work hard to give students the best education possible. To do that, there must be funding, and after visiting with each school, that seemed to rise to the top of the list of worries. I took those concerns to Montana Superintendent of Public Instruction Alcee Aronson to find out how she plans to address them, what she would like to see changed in the way Montana funds our public schools, and if she believes it's important to keep these rural schools in their communities. There are more Class C schools than anything else, combined 2-3 times as many Class C schools. So it seems to be like people like living in rural Montana. And why do you think that way of life is so attractive for so many people?
I think it is the backbone of who we were in Montana, and with the new census that's going to be coming, it might be still who we are going to be. And I believe that in schools especially, there is so much that can be given when you have a smaller class size and you have an energetic teacher and you have the leader of the district, whether it be from the school board or wherever that community's vision is. I believe that schools can mirror that and can say, this is what we can offer you.
I know that the small class sizes was one of the biggest things, one of the biggest reasons why so many teachers loved teaching in these small schools is because they have that interaction. Why do you think that's so important for students to get that interaction?
There's so much more that you can do to personalize learning. We had a little bit of a discussion on how that might be the method of the future to make sure that that constitutional opportunity is given to every student in Montana. And of course, if you have that one-on-one instruction, you can find out the strengths of that student and make sure then that those strengths are aligned to what the curriculum could be, and then fulfill the standard. And then of course, that student is given everything that they have to become who they want to be.
These rural schools, their numbers continue to drop, and they fluctuate from year to year, which is difficult to budget for when they're based on the previous year budgeting for the next year. Ideally, what would you like to see used for funding and budgeting purposes? Would you like to see the formula changed, or how would you like to see schools receive funding to provide the same level of education?
Well, I believe what we do really well in Montana is we base it on the student. That's what the whole purpose is. But it is extremely delicate, because to be able to teach a child or any student within our K-12 system, majority of the monies go toward the teacher.
Right.
And they should. And they should. The other part of this is the timing, and you hit it right on it. It's not accurate. I mean, the timing of when a student moves and a student comes into the district, there's quite a lot of turnover. But we can't continue doing it the same way every time and expecting different results.
Now, one of the concerns from a teacher that I spoke with was the fact that they're required to provide X, Y, and Z to their students, which some of them are the same as the B and the A and the AA schools as far as classes and offerings, but their A and B funding is significantly less due to their enrollment numbers. And let's say Helena High School gets X amount of funding and we have significantly less, but the expectations are still the same. How do you think that's possible?
The expectations in my mind equate to accreditation. And accreditation has been around for schools for a length of time. It's looked as an input model. In other words, how many students that you have that you have to have for a program, or that you have to have per an instructor. And so that input model is something that I think we're evolving more toward an output. That's what is the student receiving with all the things that are given to a school. And then you can also see that, well, maybe even in a larger school, there might be more opportunities because it's the bigger scale model versus the smaller scale model. So what I'm in control of at the state level is looking at that accreditation. It's that input. Now these are things that are also put in statute, so it would be a collaboration with the legislature. And all of those are what drive our funding formulas that then are what equate to what that classroom teacher and that leader in the district is talking about.
All of the schools that I have spent some time at looking at, their graduation requirements are, 24, 25 credits to graduate, and they're a lot higher than some of the AA schools across Montana. Why do you think that's the case?
I think they allow the opportunity for their experienced teachers to be able to teach. There are not distractions, I think. There are less distractions in rural Montana than there would be possibly in urban Montana.
I know that local control is a big thing for you. Do you feel that rural schools are given enough support from a state level to control themselves locally?
Oh, in my mind, it's about less regulation and more service and more support of what they might need. The larger districts, of course, might have personnel because of their budget. They might have personnel that would be able to reach out for a grant. They might have someone, that would be able to get a report into the state that the Fed might require. So what my job here at the state level is to do that equalization and say, if you can't, I can surely help.
When you drive into a town, you see the school and it has the town name on it. That might be the only thing that says it. But when it comes to enrollment numbers and the decreasing of populations of these small towns, consolidation becomes an issue, and some schools are forced to consolidate, meaning a town loses their identity when they lose their school. What do you think about consolidation, and how do you think that impacts the students involved?
As a legislator for 12 years, I did not support forced consolidation, but there should be a pathway for augmenting a school, meaning that maybe a community or a couple communities may want to get together and say, well, let's go ahead and serve our K-8 students here in this community, and then we'll do our high school here. The words forced and consolidation, in my mind, don't work in a local control state and in a pathway that I would like to see great education for each child. But to say that it needs to be from a state level would be something that I think is not part of Montana. We do believe that individuals should have a pathway for their own individual success.
Looking forward to the next 5-10 years down the line, where do you see small communities and small schools in terms of enrollment, funding problems? Do you see any potential changes happening?
If I was going to go from here and have a crystal ball, I think if I could change anything to deal with the timing on how schools get funded, I don't know the mechanism of doing that, but how they get funded to the reality of who is sitting in their classrooms, I think that would be something that I would love to offer to them so they can have actual dollar to actual student needs. So we have to create a system that's going to be more for the future, and it can't be based on what we've always done.
We've spent time in communities some Montanans have never heard of or visited. The everyday lives of these students and educators are difficult as they face an ever-changing future. Consolidation is an idea that has been discussed in rural areas and has happened in a few communities, although some superintendents believe it's not an ideal situation for students or staff. And when enrollment continues to dwindle, the thought of consolidation with another district becomes reality. But these schools are more than just a place of learning, and losing them would impact more than just the students.
It is the heart of the community. It's the pulse of the community.
So much so that on a cold, windy day in Augusta, the football team had a packed stands cheering them on.
Just because I don't have children here doesn't mean I don't know the kids that are on the field. This is what we do in small towns.
Consolidation has not happened to Augusta, but it did happen in 2005.
Brady consolidated with Dutton, so that's how we ended up with Dutton Brady. But up along the High Line, some of those schools have gone through several consolidations.
And Superintendent D.K. Brooks is still concerned.
We're constantly concerned about enrollment.
Yes, put your name on there.
At some point, we may have to consolidate. Would it be with Power 10 miles down the road, or would it be with Shoto 22 miles to the west? We don't know.
An unknown feeling that's shared among these communities.
And so you're going to now split up the district, and who knows where kids are going to go.
Not only do these school leaders not know what would happen to their students, the future of the communities are uncertain as well.
Should it go away? Who knows? There might be one or two businesses that stay in operation on Main Street, but it's one of those thoughts that we don't like to think about.
You would see a loss of population. It wouldn't take long either.
These schools have teachers who are pulling double and sometimes triple duty, teaching multiple grades and subjects.
2 houses. It's going to be split into 2 houses. One's going to be the House of Representatives.
And while Hot Springs Superintendent Mike Perry sees that as a positive thing for the students,
I don't think this one's coming down.
it's also concerning as an administrator.
The chances of us finding a family consumer science / art teacher are probably extremely slim. And so that means that when she retires, one of those programs is probably going to go away.
Some families in Hot Springs work on ranches, but there is not a major employer in the area like so many of these small Montana towns.
It's like we're setting ourselves up to become a smaller community as we graduate students and they leave to find other occupations.
Day to day, the challenges of education in rural Montana are dynamic and unpredictable. But the people show up to the schools every day
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
because they want to be there.
It's exactly what I think I envisioned education to be.
Over the last 30 minutes, we have taken you all over western Montana, from Hot Springs on the edge of the Flathead Indian Reservation to Augusta, nestled alongside the Rocky Mountain front, and Dutton, 40 miles north of Great Falls on Interstate 15. 3 Class C schools separated by hundreds of miles, but connected by the challenges they face: budget uncertainties, shrinking enrollment, and unstable futures. But one ultimate goal: educating their students and setting them up to be successful. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Face the State. I'll leave you with one final thought from Augusta's superintendent.
Rural education in Montana, it's more than education, and I'm sure you've heard this from other people you talked to. It is a way of life.
You've been watching Face the State, a presentation of MTN, the Montana Television Network.